I'm still processing last week's fight, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. Now, I thought personally this was one of the best performances of Alex Pereira in the UFC. The way he was maintaining range and distance. I think he's really grown into being a champion, and we really saw his experience in the octagon. He used his reach, his size, and also his ring IQ very well, because we saw him not gas out in the early rounds. I mean, he doesn't do that anyway, but it could have been. I mean, it was in Salt Lake City, and we know the altitude, what poor problems it causes other fighters, and he managed it very well. And that was a tactic I believe he had going into this fight. One thing Pereira done very well is use his reach. He's only got 3.5 inches on Khalil Rountree, but it looked like it was a lot longer, and he was able to use his jab very effectively throughout the whole fight. He established it very early, and towards the end we saw what kind of problems just the jab alone was causing Khalil. For most of the fight, he wasn't using anything other than his jab and maybe a front kick here and there and his low kicks. It was really his jab and low kicks that were just causing all sorts of problems for Khalil, and he wasn't able to overcome it. And obviously his power. I know I said Pereira was conserving his energy early on in the fight, but straight away he comes in with some mad front kick to the head of Khalil, misses, and Khalil uses his Muay Thai, which I think he could have used a bit more, especially if his grappling was on point and he wanted to use more of his grappling. He could have converted these situations into more taking his back or something. But obviously Khalil's not a grappler and he's a pure Muay Thai guy, but he grabs his leg, one of the Muay Thai trips, and then obviously he just gets up. Nothing really came from that. But one thing I wanted to point out is a size difference. Obviously Khalil is squatting down on his legs a little bit here, but I mean, just look at the back of Pereira. Look at Rountree, man. He looks so small. I don't know how Pereira ever made middleweight. The size difference was clear from this fight. This is something Khalil was doing throughout the whole fight. He will have these short little bursts, and a lot of the time he would miss. Even here, he might have maybe just touched him, but Pereira's going back, and his punches will fall short, sometimes by inches or centimeters. You'll see Pereira just about moves his head and evades the punches. Here he misses. And also another thing is that it, like I said, it is in Salt Lake City. So if you're missing, and Khalil was throwing a lot of fast, high energy combinations, and he was missing a lot of the time. And later on in the fight, you'll see how it affected him, because he will throw 2-3 punch combinations and he'll miss maybe 2 or even all 3 of them sometimes, and to land 1. And I don't think it was worth it, because it didn't really trouble Pereira too much. And on top of that, it was just draining him out. However, it was still a very good round for Khalil. He was trying to fight at a very high pace. And one thing you would see from Pereira is that he was very relaxed, very composed, didn't throw much. I think Pereira came in with a game plan that he was going to start off slow, let Khalil get tired, and in the later rounds, in the championship rounds, he was going to take him. So we see his trademark low kicks. He was landing them, and they were heavy low kicks, because you can actually hear them. You can hear them slapping onto Khalil's his calf kicks. And the accumulation of damage throughout the fight was adding up. And a lot of people gave Khalil round 1, but I actually gave it to Pereira, because I felt like initially I did give it to Khalil because he seemed like he was a more active fighter, but when I rewatched it, in terms of damage, I would have to give it to Pereira. He landed the more effective shots, I believe, the more damaging shots. Here, Khalil lands a very good shot on his chin. Didn't do much to Pereira, but he got the crowd hyped, and I feel like that's why a lot of people gave it to Khalil, because we weren't really expecting him to do much against Pereira. But yeah, Pereira was showing his championship levels of IQ. It was making Khalil miss and was making him pay. Start establishing the jab very well, and this jab was so effective throughout the whole fight. You see it later in the rounds. You see what kind of problems it was causing Rountree. At the end of the round, Rountree looked like he was tired. The arms were all on the cage. His body language was just giving away signs that he was tired. I mean, yeah, it is Salt Lake City. We know what problems altitude causes. We've seen it time and time again cause high level fighters with decent endurance, cause them problems. And I felt like he was burning himself out. He would start off every round very strong, but second round was a very good round for him, but third and fourth, you'll see he start off very strong, but by the end of the round, he had nothing left in his tank. One thing Khalil's corner was telling him to do is control the whole round. They were saying that he wants him to win the round, obviously, but he was saying control the whole round. The way he was doing that is by throwing a lot of shots. It worked, of course, because he did win round 2, I believe. Just about. I think it was closer than a lot of people were making out to be. But at what cost? Because it looked like after round 2, he was completely drained and Pereira was pacing himself very well. And I think the reason why is that he was banking on Khalil getting tired and for Pereira to have more energy in the championship rounds, which worked very well for him. So it starts off again, Pereira continuing to throw jabs. One thing was that usually you're told, well, in boxing anyway, you're told not to jab against a southpaw because his right hand is there to block it and you could come around. And if you want to throw the jab, then you kind of step out. So you're hitting him from an angle, and rather than a jab, you would want to throw a left hook. But the way he was establishing this jab, he was just getting through his guard, straight through his guard, and it was causing so much damage. You could see Khalil's head getting knocked back every time. And he was having difficulty dealing with that jab. One thing which I found quite fascinating is that Khalil actually only landed a quarter of his shots, and Pereira had a 50% success rate with his shots. The way Khalil was throwing shots, he was throwing shots 2 in 2s, 3s, 4s. He was throwing combinations, and to only land a quarter of them, it makes sense because he's throwing more. But also, what did that do to his gas tank? That's what drained him. And it was too taxing on his endurance levels, I think. You see, Pereira goes for a high kick. Done that a few times, went very high, went for a head kick. You see Khalil just duck under, comes in with his own shot. Well, Pereira lands almost with his back to Khalil, and then he just gets clipped round the ear, gets dropped onto his knees. But yeah, gets back up. If he had a little bit of grappling, could have took his back, could have done something else. I mean, Pereira ain't the best at grappler, so if he had a decent level grappling, could have been a different game. But he doesn't, and ends the round again with his own head kick, which lands, and then it just tells you what kind of chin this guy has. He just brushed it off like it was nothing. But yeah, Khalil, I think, won the round because of that knockdown and also how he ended the last 30 seconds or so of the fight. Slightly the more damaging fighter. I didn't really think he done as good as people was making out to be, but whatever, he won the round anyway. This is where Pereira comes into full action. You see everything that he's worked for. He starts stalking Rountree this round. You see Rountree starts off very good. He starts off very high pace, throwing loads of shots. There was about 2 minutes left in the round. You see Khalil just ran out of steam. He was finished. Pereira stalking him, landing some devastating combos, and his jab again just knocking his head back every time. The stats actually show, if you look here, they actually landed very similar amount of shots, well, to the head and to the body anyway. But what the amount Rountree was throwing, he probably throwed 3-4 times the amount Pereira was showing. Pereira was just focused on one thing, his jabs and his calf kicks, and well, two things, and his jabs and his calf kicks, and they were so effective for the whole fight. And now we start evading punches, start throwing more combos. The way he would lunge in with his jabs is so weird, but I mean, yeah, it was working, knocking his head back, so why not? And then he was evading beautifully. Like, he was missing, and he would just kind of dip his shoulder in a weird kind of way, not like a Philly shell, but he would dip his shoulder down, and then obviously the right hand is there every time, will come over the top. By the time round four came, you'll see Khalil was finished. He was just huffing and puffing. He was out of steam. Now Pereira is in full flow, stepping into his jabs with full power. Like I said, it's so strange how he does it, but it's so effective. Like, if you see how open he is, but I feel like his power just kind of stops it because people don't want to take that risk with Pereira. And one thing with Pereira, I don't even think, I mean, yeah, he's definitely a power puncher and he's got crazy levels of power, but I think the reason why he's got the touch of death is because he doesn't telegraph at all. And you don't see any of his kicks, you don't see any of his punches, you don't see anything coming. You can't time it. It's so difficult because he throws so awkwardly and he throws from awkward positions. And that just adds on to the power that he already possesses. If you want to see Pereira at his best, I recommend everyone to watch him from about 249 or round 4 to about 230. That was the best I've seen Pereira. His movement was just so amazing. The way he was able to lean back away from punches, evade them, and just come back with shots every time. Use his jabs so effectively. Just hit him from range and come in, and just, it was nasty. It was just a nasty piece of work. And you could see how Rountree reacted. I think after that he was done. He wasn't even trying to. He knew he couldn't beat this man that was in front of him. You saw him back up. He has heart. Rountree definitely has heart because he was throwing shots back, but the way he was done. His body language, everything was just done. He knew that he just got beat up. And after he had him hurt, he doesn't go crazy. He doesn't jump on him. He remains calm and patient and uses his boxing very well. We would see normally people going crazy when you got someone hurt like Khalil. You want to get him out of there. But what we saw from Pereira is that he was just able to patiently stalk him, just continue the jab, continue the leg kicks, and when the opening show, take them. And then obviously the fight ends, backs him up after Khalil throws some wild left hooks, drained himself completely, and just goes to the body and just rips the body, gives him a two-piece combo, and that's it. Lights out for Khalil, finished. So what's next for both of these? I think, yeah, like I said, one of the best performances for Pereira, but there's only one man left. It's Ankalaev. Is his striking going to be effective with Ankalaev? Can he defend like the takedowns against Ankalaev? I don't know. We're going to have to see. You never know. Pereira always has a puncher's chance. Could knock him out as he's coming in. Could time a knee perfectly straight to the chin, and that's it. Lights out for Ankalaev. You don't know what's going to happen. And Pereira's a madman. But yeah, I think that's the only fight. There's no one else really that anyone... I mean, I would watch any Pereira fight, but Ankalaev, that's the one. I feel like this Rountree fight was just to squeeze all the money that could be made out from Pereira before he loses the title. I don't think he can beat Ankalaev. It's just grappling is going to be too much for him to deal with. I mean, he done good against Jan Blachowicz, dealt with the grappling, I mean, better than I thought he would, but Ankalaev, I think, is on the next level. He's an animal. And for Rountree, honestly, I would like to see him go against Yuri. I feel like he gave Pereira a much more competitive fight than Yuri could. So I would love to see that. Khalil goes up in rankings, gets another title shot along the line. Yeah, that's it. I think Pereira is a beast, man.